Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. Alright, I'm here today with a quick review for Zombicide Invader. So if you guys watched a video I did, I think it was last year sometime, I took a look at a couple of the expansions for Zombicide Black Plague. I think they were from like the Green Horde series. And in that review I was wondering whether or not those two expansions would be the things that got me to really love Zombicide as a game series, and unfortunately they were not. Fast forward to Zombicide Invader. When it came out on Kickstarter, I decided to back it, and again I wondered if this would be the game that would get me to really love Zombicide as a series, as a franchise, as an IP. And I'm not quite sure why I keep trying to love Zombicide. It's probably like the sunk cost fallacy. I've put a decent amount of time into playing Zombicide and collecting it, and a decent amount of money buying different sets. And so I keep trying to force myself to like the game, and unfortunately I just don't think that's going to happen. And I think I'm officially calling it quits with Zombicide. I'm going to sell my stuff. I just don't really care for the game. Now that's not to say it's a bad game or a poorly made game. I don't think it is. I actually think it's a pretty well made game. I think that the rules are well written. They are concise and clear. The goals of the game are well defined. There's not a lot of ambiguity because there really aren't a lot of moving parts to Zombicide. It's actually a pretty simple game a lot of the time. So this is not the state of a board at any point during a game. I just kind of had set some stuff up afterwards to take some pictures. But you're basically, like I said, you're going to be picking 6 characters, and that's one of the reasons I'll touch on why I don't really like the game, especially as a solo game. So my last video of Objectifying Plastic, we went through and we got the 6 heroes that I was playing as. Zik, which I was told was the alien from District 9. Then we have, of course, Carlota, Vasquez from Aliens, Rhea, Tank Girl, Preacher Carl, of course, Carl Urban from Judge Dredd, Dr. Falconer, Stephen Hawking, and Major Sharp, Emily Blunt from All You Need Is Kill / Live Die Repeat / Edge of Tomorrow. And so those are my heroes that I was playing as, and they are all right here. I put them together in this group, making a last stand against this alien, obviously a xenomorph. But so really what you're doing is you're taking your heroes out on the board. They're going to start, usually in this game, in Zombicide Invader, they're going to start inside a facility, because outside you need oxygen to survive the harsh alien environment. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look for some oxygen. You're going to search the rooms to get better gear, hopefully finding some of this prototype gear, which can be strong, or other weapons, body armor, that kind of thing. Mainly you're going to be looking for these oxygen tanks so you can survive outside. You're going to be picking up these objective tokens, which some of them will have a different color on the other side. And those are going to, usually those will trigger something that happens in the scenario. You need a certain number of those to do something. And in a lot of campaign, or a lot of the missions, you have to, group up in a certain area after collecting a certain number of tokens, or defeating a certain enemy, or usually it's finding a certain color objective token. That's usually the goal. So there are a few different colors here, like white and blue. And that's pretty much what you do every single mission in the game. There's not a ton of variety, and there's not a lot going on outside of the combat. This is just kind of I think it would almost work better if the game was even more simplified, at least for me. And it was just like a really basic kind of tower defense game. I would probably like that a little more, just because I find that the moving around of on the map, and the dungeon crawl, the corridor crawl part of Zombicide, I don't think is very exciting at all. And that's not the focus of the game. The focus of the game is chaotic combat, and it does that very well. That's just not something that really appeals to me. What I do like the characters, and I love the dashboards. The production quality of Zombicide cannot be, it's impeachable. It's fantastic. You've got these trays where you can keep track of your health. You can keep track of your different skills. Your weapons slot into these spaces nicely. You have your spots for your body and your like accessories, and you have your backpack spots where you're keeping your extra gear. I mean, just fantastic quality all around. And I do really like the characters and how every time you kill a zombie, you get XP. And as you get XP, you get to learn new skills. You always start with one skill. Your second skill is always an additional action. But then when you get to these, you get to choose. And some of them can be fairly interesting. Some of them can add quite a bit of variety to the game, to the combat. And so that is a lot of fun. I do, however, find it quite difficult when you are juggling 6 different characters, remembering all of the different abilities. And that is where the game really falls apart for me, just because I don't like having to play as 6 characters in a party when the characters are this complex. Well, not really complex, but when there are this many keywords you have to remember on each of the different characters, I am finding myself looking in the book quite a bit just to remember what they do. I really wish there was an option to take this down to like 4 or 3. I thought about maybe doubling up the actions, but then you don't get as many hit points, because you have if one character dies in this game, then that's it. That's game over. That's one of the ways that the game can be game over. So if you shrink the party down to 3, then you're shrinking your health pool down to 3. So you could double the health of each character and then double the amount of actions of each character, but then each character is going to be like a super uber hero, and I think that will completely throw off the balance of the game. The game is very tightly balanced. I can't say it's super tightly balanced, but the game is designed around having 3 somewhat squishy characters who can all have a pretty good chance of survival. So getting that down to 3 I think would be very difficult. So that's just the way they've made the game. That's how CMON has decided to design Zombicide, and more power to them. That's great. As a group game, I think this can be a lot of fun. 3 players is pretty fun, with each controlling 2 heroes. I like that quite a bit. But again, I mean, most of my gaming, especially these days, is done solo, and so it doesn't make a lot of sense for me. So I think I'm finally done trying to love Zombicide. It's just not the game for me. I think it is a perfectly fine game. It is well made. I have no real issues with the game, except for I just don't enjoy it. Some of the things that this game does differently than Black Plague is that I like is the idea of sustained fire. So the combat in Zombicide it's interesting. So you have these little zombies, and they need 1 damage to kill. You have these bigger zombies, they need 2 damage to kill. And then you have the abominations, and they need 3 damage to kill. However, damage does not stack. It's not cumulative in this game. These guys, you have to have a weapon that does at least 1 damage. Each hit counts as 1. That's it. It's a hit or it's not. The tanks, you have to have a weapon that does 2 damage. If you have a weapon that only does 1 damage, you can't just shoot him twice to kill him. He has to be killed by a 2 damage hit. The abominations have to be killed by a 3 damage hit. Now in past games, it was very difficult to kill the abominations because you would have to either make an uber weapon that could do 3 damage, or some of the special heroes would add a damage and they could take out one of the abominations. However, in this game, there's an idea called sustained fire, and you can pick a target, and then you can actually add together hits to kill bigger enemies like the abominations. And it's an all or nothing type deal, and so it's kind of a pressure luck thing, and I thought that was really cool. That made fighting the abominations a lot more fun, because you would group together your dice for the attack and roll, and it was like press your luck. You needed to get all or nothing to beat the abominations, and I really enjoyed that. These what are they, spore abominations or mold abominations, I think is what they're called. They go around the map and they lay out these mold tokens. You have an inactive side and an active side. I wish that was a little bit more different. I always have a hard time remembering which is which, but if 2 spawn points, so these are going to be points where other zombies spawn and rush in. If 2 of those are ever connected by a line of mold, then that is another way that the game can end. So that's a different losing condition. These mold spots, these spore mold tokens, they can become spawn points at sometimes, depending on what kind of card you draw for spawning the zombies. So this is a little bit of an added mechanism that is not in Zombicide Black Plague. I don't know if it adds enough to make up for the, it's kind of just another fiddly thing you're dealing with on the board, and the board is already not so interesting. I guess this adds a little more of an interesting element to moving around the map, but that is one of the main things that I don't like about Zombicide, and Massive Darkness, that I mentioned in my review for Massive Darkness. It's just the maps themselves just are not very interesting. Nothing is really happening on the map. There are no traps. There are no ways to interact with the different elements. It's just art. And I wish there was just a few more things, like a deck, like I've said before, like a deck of cards, of event cards that could have that, little narrative events could be triggered. Just a little something else. I mentioned in my review for Wander, the Cult of Barnacle Bay, which is very much a kind of a Zombicide style dungeon crawl combat game, but that does have a deck of event cards, and that adds just a certain little bit of spice to each game that I appreciate a lot. And I think Zombicide could go a long way in adding something like that. But again, that could take away from the element that a lot of people maybe like about Zombicide, that it is just kind of not hardcore, but just a chaotic combat game. And there is a certain amount of fun when you have like a group of zombies like this, like an entire horde, barreling down on your characters, and you are just sitting there like trying to pick them off one by one. And in that way, it is kind of like Space Hulk. And I could see this game right here being, I know I complain sometimes about Space Hulk not really having a co-op mode. This is kind of a co-op, you could play a single player Space Hulk style game. And so in that way, maybe I should like Zombicide Invader more, because I do like playing Space Hulk. But Space Hulk is even more simple. There's even less moving parts. It's more of a streamlined reduction of a corridor crawl chaotic combat game. And so I think maybe just there's adding a few elements to Zombicide makes it doesn't add much interest for me, but then there's not enough elements to really push it over the edge to make it really interesting for me. So it's kind of in this weird middle ground. And ultimately, I think that's why I've decided that Zombicide and all its iterations is just not a game for me. Even though I love the production quality, the minis are beautiful. I'm actually thinking of selling this, but I might sell it as an incomplete game. I might keep the stretch goals. I might just sell the base game and keep the stretch goals for like for some of the abominations like this, because I think you could use these in Warhammer Quest for some of the like chaos beasts, some of the chaos gods and monsters that are kind of hard to difficult and expensive to find in Citadel miniatures. So I'm not sure quite yet what I'm going to do with my Zombicide stuff. I may just like give away all of the cardboard components, give away everything except the minis, and keep the minis, because I think these would be great to someday eventually use in something like Core Space. So yeah, I'm just not sure. I'm not going to be buying any more Zombicide, and I'm writing Zombicide off. But that doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's actually a pretty well designed game. It's just a game for people who aren't me. So all right guys, well, I hope you enjoyed this video of Zombicide Invader. If I'm going to, I have a huge list of games that I'm selling right now because I have absolutely no room for new games, and that has been actually preventing me from buying new games, because every time a game comes in right now, it's more of a it's a stressor. I get anxiety about it because I have no place to put it. I have stacks of games underneath my table in my laundry room, in my garage. I need to start selling stuff, and I need to get to that point where I can let these things go. I'm sure there's a lot of us like that. But so I will be putting together a huge list of games that I'm going to be selling. So anyways, all right guys, well, that's it. Talk to you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.